That's great. So, welcome everyone on our Mind and Body Wellness Health Talks. Today is the episode 10, and we have got, I'm Dr. Manmeet Kaur from Pencom Health Center, attached with Thriving Communities as one of the directors. And we have been running Mind and Body Wellness program in person for nearly 2 years in Kefili. And as a part of that, we are doing these health talks. So I've got Esther today. She is a wonderful director attached to Thriving Communities as well. And Esther is also, her background is she's reflexologist. She does a wonderful facial reflexology, which luckily I had a treatment from her and I loved it. Apart from reflexology, Esther is a British Nordic walking instructor, and she has been doing Nordic walking sessions again for more than a year on a regular basis. And today she decided to do a talk on Nordic walking. I again had an opportunity to attend her Nordic walking session recently, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I recommend, most of you to attend these sessions. They're really helpful. So today she is going to talk about the health benefits for Nordic walking and how is it different from the trekking or other normal walking. And also she will share her personal experiences with the Nordic walking. So I'm really looking forward to hear all that stories from Esther. Thank you. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you, Dr. Manmeet. I couldn't have written it better or introduced myself better. So really appreciate that glowing introduction. And thank you all for attending. And obviously, we are a little bit lower on numbers today, but that doesn't signify because it's quality rather quantity sometimes. And also we're recording this so that we can upload it to our YouTube channel. And if you are watching on the replay, please remember to like the channel and follow and click the notification so that you can be notified of further mind and body wellness health talks. So I'm going to go and start straight away by sharing my screen. I've prepared a few little slides and I will share the sound because there is some Now, let me know, obviously, when I go through this to share some of the audio. So there's some audio files. If you cannot hear it, it means that I'm not sharing enough screen. So I might have to come out and then go back in to the screen share option. So I'm going to just collapse this so I can see what I'm doing and present it. This particular episode is called Why Nordic Walk, and then sharing some inspirational stories. Mine is relatively low-key in terms of inspiration, but it's significant for me, for my own personal health and well-being journey. But there are some really amazing stories out there about the benefits and how Nordic walking is so powerful from a holistic point of view for both physical and mental health. So let's move down. Page down. Nothing's working. So quickly to recap the content, what is Nordic walking? So its origins, introducing the 10-step technique and comparing it with trekking, because some people will be curious as to why it's significantly different. Then I'll cover the benefits of Nordic walking, so physical and mental benefits and the rehabilitation benefits, because that's quite key. And my personal insights and experience, so sharing those benefits that I receive from regular Nordic walking. And then finally sharing some other personal accounts of people who have been so inspired by the effects of Nordic walking on them that a lot of them have become British Nordic walking instructors themselves. And they want to share that with others. So how did Nordic walking start in the first place? So basically, it was designed for Finnish cross-country skiers to continue their exercise regime during the warmer months, so the summer months, whilst they were waiting for the competitions in the winter months or the colder months. So it started in the early 20th century. But over the decades, it's evolved into a really full body fitness activity. And but for me, it's more than fitness. It's definitely a lot more than that, as you'll soon discover. So some key milestones in the history. So 1985, Tom Rutlin in America developed the exostrider technique using modified ski poles for fitness walking. And then in the 1990s, in Finland, refined the practice with researchers and companies like Excel. So Excel designed these specialized poles, and they coined the term Nordic walking. There's also another supplier of poles. So there are two types. I'm trying to remember no, it's gone from my head. It'll come back to me in a minute. And 2000, the International Nordic Walking Association was established to promote and standardize the practice globally. And then a little bit later, years later, the British Nordic Walking BNA was established as the UK's only representative of the International Nordic Walking Federation, and the only body to offer training in the internationally recognized INWA 10-step method of Nordic walking, which obviously I trained according to that. So it then dovetails nicely into the 10-step technique. So there's a very structured approach to learning Nordic walking. We start off with a posture. So by posture, we mean, there's Paul, sorry, I'm going to just let him in. With posture, we really keep a really upright posture. So basically, the shoulders are rolled back and down. The tummy is tucked in. The buttocks are tucked in. And the knees are straight, but there's a slight loosening in the knees. And the important thing is, what I teach with posture is to keep your chin level to the horizon and your gaze forward, because a lot of people tend to look down and then they start shuffling and losing their balance. In actual fact, looking ahead, and my yoga teacher, my other yoga teacher, not Dr. Mami, teaches this a lot, that if you focus on the horizon, your balance is actually better. So the second step is the lean. So basically, it's a slight lean and you're rolling. So we talk about the roll from the heel to the toe. So you're activating the whole foot. And it feels like you're going to fall forward, but then you use the poles to break the fall and you start launching into step 3, which is the walk. And the walk is very, very specific. It's like a march walk. So you're doing alternate arm to alternate leg. And this is the natural gait. But the problem is, as we get older, and as we accumulate more stress in our body, which is very prevalent at the moment, lots of people are subject to a lot of stress, pressures on them, both in the workplace and in the home. And what happens is our body starts to economize on energy. And so therefore, the coordination starts to disappear and we lose the ability to naturally walk with alternate arm and leg. And what we find is, as you get older or as you become more stressed, your arm and leg, as I say, you start moving with both same arm and leg. And it's just a brain's mechanism to conserving energy, apparently. So this is why it's so important to help with the left-right brain hemisphere and the coordination. The walk that we do, it helps because you've got the poles to support you in having that marching technique moving forward. And when we go on to the differences between trekking and Nordic walking, you understand how the pole is used in this walk. It's very, very specific to Nordic walking. And the next step is the rotation. So there's literally, because you're doing alternate arm and leg, you naturally, with your shoulder of the arm moving forward, move slightly into the inner part of the body, into the inside of the opposite leg. So you have the upper body rotation. So it's a slight ringing effect in the body, which is really good to stimulate the lymphatic system and the blood circulation. So what we find is that we actually have a better toning of muscle and of the whole body's rhythms. And you'll find that you will benefit immensely from this. So in terms of your core strength and also your general fitness and toning of all the muscles of the body. So the next step is like a drag. So if anything, I asked because as I'll explain in a minute, with the poles, you've got the option of dragging without having to without the poles losing connection with your body. You have the option to drag. So the idea is to drag behind you the pole as opposed to placing in front of you. And then it naturally finds its place alongside the heel of the rear foot. So the foot that's behind. And then you actually have a leverage then. It naturally finds a hooking place in the ground, and then you use that placing to push off with the pole. And what's happened is when you grip it, you push, and then you release. So you extend fully the arm towards the back as you push off, and then you actively release behind the body. So and then you swing forward with the pole. So I'm going to now try and demonstrate that, because very, very subtle differences there in the technique. So if I stop sharing here for a minute, you can probably to see me if I'm going to pin myself, pin. So I'm going to change the angle of my camera. So this is basically, this is the left. So there is a left and right glove to the pole. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see me. So I might not be able to talk because I'm going to have to remove this. So this is really difficult to demonstrate in the living room. But basically, as I was trying to show you, it's finds purchase. You push with your arm behind, and you extend the arm, and it releases. You fully extend, and then you pull forward. So it really is a definite push, extend, and release, and then move forward. So I'm going to go back into my screen share again, just to recap. Share my screen, because I think I'm not going to be able to share some of these content I'm going to share. So basically, extend fully, release actively, and swing forward. So there are 10 specific incremental steps. It sounds complicated, but the way we train is we break it down, and we do fun exercises so that you can remember these and then start putting them all together. And we don't expect people to learn all 10 in one go. So that's the importance of attending regular sessions, so that you can embed what you've learned and then just build on, like building bricks on a house. You build it up gradually, and then you have a firm foundation on which to explore further and discover then different terrains and working with different environments and having more fun with the technique. So this is my take on the difference between trekking versus Nordic walking poles for a start. So trekking poles feature just basically a single loop strap, and they have a chunky square or curved shape at the top. They're not ideal for hard surfaces, but Nordic walking poles are more slender or streamlined and very lightweight, featuring a glove. So again, come back to the glove. The glove is here, right? And there is a specific left and right glove. It doesn't matter. There's no specific left and right poles because the glove detaches from the pole. This is the interesting feature of a Nordic walking pole, is that you have, I'll put the glove on, you can see, there is a button at the top where you push in to release the glove. So the glove still stays on the hand from the pole. And the idea behind this is that you could switch arms, use it in a different way. You can use it for your training, for upper body strength. So we do lots of fun warm-up exercises, cool down exercises, using the poles. We do kayaking, moves and forwards and backwards. We do stretching behind and we use this to open up the chest and help with that posture to begin with. And we switch around on both sides and we do like presses, almost like bench presses, like that with the poles. And this is great because then we can just quickly snap back in when we're ready to walk. Oh, I can't show this. Trying to get the camera angle. And we push it back in and we use the hand pressure, the joint pressure between the thumb and the finger to push it, and it clicks back in, and then it's attached again to your wrist and to your hand. So it's really great quick release system. And they have so the poles also have a bear. Legs keep popping out. So I'll show you the bottom of the pole. I can see. Right, okay, so you can use your heel. You don't have to use your hand. That's the beauty of this, is that you knock that with your foot, the side of your foot, and it releases this foot pad. This is now a foot pad. It's like a rubber pad at the bottom, grip. It's got a grip for harder surfaces, more firm surfaces. But then once it's released, I can just, sorry. I'm so used to doing it with the foot. Bear with me. I've done it with the foot now because I'm so used to doing it with the foot. So you don't even have to touch it, and then it knocks it. I'm trying to get the angle of the camera right so you can see. So it knocks the pad off, and then you've got the point. It's like a metal point at the end. Oh, got metal point at the end, and then you can, with your heel, you clip that, and it clips against it. So it reveals this spike here at the bottom to actually use on more uneven, rougher terrain and to find purchase. So that's useful for that. So as I say, and then it clips, we can clip it back on with your foot. You don't even have to touch it with your hand. So when it gets really muddy, this is great because you don't have to touch it with your hand. You do it all with your foot, with the side of your foot. And it's really easy to release and to clip back up again. So it's great. Portable poles can be more expensive than trekking poles. A lot of them have a significant carbon content. So the set I have is 100% carbon. And what does that mean? It's really designed for lightweightness. It's really, really light as a material, but it's very, very strong and durable as well. So, and it gives ease of mobility because the fact that it's very, very light. You don't even notice it. So you get a better workout, to be honest. You're not actually supporting the poles either. They're supporting you. So in terms of the actual walking, so with trekking, you usually place the poles directly in front of you. So you're like more like this, finding purchase. But with the Nordic walking pole, the pole is set at roughly a 45-degree angle backwards according to the swing of your arm. So backwards and forwards. So it's swinging the arm. And you'll see this in a minute when I show one of the testimonial videos. So actually, I can show you this one first. If I just share that, you can hear this.
It's the difference between trekking and Nordic walking. So here's a quick demonstration of the two techniques. First of all, trekking. And next, I'm going to show you Nordic walking. Here are the poles. Notice there's a lovely padded strap that I'll be able to push harder, further back, releasing my fingers. And the poles themselves are lovely and lightweight. So here comes a demonstration of Nordic walking. See how many differences you can spot. Okay. Did you notice the pole angle? Yes, it's at 45 degrees in Nordic walking. It means when I push on the pole, I can really feel it propels me forward. Did you notice my upper body moving more in Nordic walking? It's a bigger arm movement and there's a little bit of upper body rotation, which feels great when you've had a long day in front of the computer. So, in summary, Nordic walking uses a whole body. It spreads the effort so that it feels easier, and cycle instructor.
That's a nice slides there. Sorry about that. If there was a bit of lagging there because I'm showing some lagging problems. Right, let me just see. So I'm going to cover the physical health benefits of Nordic walking now. So as the lady mentioned on the video, if you managed to hear that, we're looking at 20 to 47% more calories burnt than regular walking. And we were taught as British Nordic Walking on our training course that, you know, up to 47%, and sometimes it can actually burn more calories than swimming and jogging. It builds strength and tone, so engages 90% of the body's muscles, toning the body, especially because of that twisting, that almost like cross training effect with the tummy. It tightens all that up and builds strength and endurance. And bone health, that's a significant one. So it's a great weight bearing form of exercise. Paul's still trying to join. And bone strengthening, and it's very low impact on the joints, so it reduces the strain, and I'll come on to my story in that regard in a moment. So great for heart health, so it increases your cardiovascular fitness, so heart health, the pump and the ability to pump blood around the body, improving the dynamism of the arteries and so forth, so you get a real better workout. Better balance and flexibility, so it enhances that balance and flexibility by lengthening our stride, working on the posture and our gait, so it's a more natural upright gait. And then it improves brain function because of the coordinated movements. Nordic walking can improve brain function. It helps reset the left brain hemispheres and the cross coordination with the body. So right side to left side of the body and left brain to the right side of the body. And in terms of mental health benefits, it creates more calm. It helps with relaxation and reduces stress, the cortisol levels in your body. It helps to elevate mood. So being outdoors obviously is a natural mood enhancer. You get a little bit of serotonin, and just nature provides that feeling of abundance and euphoria, and helps with the energy levels. And then fun and social. So we make it fun and social. We have some games with it. We have a little warm-up fun game as well. So with the warm-up exercises, it's not sort of totally boring, and you know, because I love it because it's a great alternative. If you're not a big gym fanatic, or you're not a great runner because you've got joint problems like me, this is a wonderful substitute or alternative to that. So it's social and it's fun, and it helps to reduce isolation and depression. So when we share a common interest, we tend to, and you know, have more of a reason to get out of your bed. You're more likely to feel less depressed and low in mood. And in terms of rehabilitation benefits, there's plenty of them. This is just some of the top 10, I would say. So it helps with arthritis, with fibromyalgia, Parkinson's, breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, PTSD, chronic pain, injury. So after injury, rehabilitation, stroke, and osteoporosis. So we're going to share some stories in a minute after I've shared my experience. So I've been diagnosed with moderate to severe in one knee and severe in the other osteoarthritis. So that really means that I have, there's obviously, it's degeneration. It's possibly the type of activities, the businesses. I used to run a coffee shop. I was 5 long years on my feet a lot. And also I took up taekwondo, trying to get fitter after being trained as a reflexologist, where I did a lot of studying, sitting down, and then I launched straight into taekwondo, and that's very, very stressful on the knee joint and the hip, because you're always swiveling and you're always flicking doing a kick that way, extending out from the knee joint. and all sorts of different positions. So probably compounded it, but I tend to get quite a bit of swelling. So yesterday I did all day a Taekwondo technical training seminar as a first dan black belt, and it was very, very impactful on my knees. So I'm feeling it more. So my natural tendency now would be to go Nordic walking, because I did it last Tuesday around Pen y Fan Pond. It was gorgeous weather. I did 2 laps in our local area, and honestly, I was free of pain for 2 days, no swelling, and it was obviously, it releases lots of positive hormones in your body, endorphins, dopamine, even sort of like oxytocin, because you love being with yourself, you love the exercise, and yeah, it feels great, and it helps with releasing pain, relieving pain, and helps with mobility of your joints, and reduce the swelling. I had no swelling and had no pain for subsequent days. It's great for toning body, helping with the posture. So because we hunch over, as the lady mentioned, then we're often at a desk or over our phone. So what happens, all the muscles here contract, and there's a lot of tightness here. We get tension in the back of our neck. And this is wonderful because it really naturally, without you thinking about it too much, it naturally corrects your upper body posture. And you also work those muscles to release any stress and tension and tightness. And you'll find that your posture starts improving, your spine health. And they say you're as old as your spine, or the health as your spine. So, if you look after your spine, then you will live a long and healthy life. And so you'll have less back pain. So it's great for that reason. And that's the reason why I like it too. So finally, obviously, I mentioned this before, it's a great mood enhancer. Being out in nature, whether I'm with a group or on my own, it doesn't matter. It's that energetic movement that releases stagnant or low energy. So low energy comes from feeling down, feeling unmotivated. And sometimes you have to get past that to come out and do this. And then once you do, you're hooked, to be honest. You will love it. The more you do it, the more you're hooked. And so I'm going to share a couple of little life stories here. Hopefully this will work, because we had some issues with bandwidth earlier. So I'm going to try and it's supposed to bring it in at the right point, but not.
Thank you. My wrist.
Right, let me just get to the right place, sorry.
Thank you for downloading the Walking on Air podcast. Before I begin, I would like to thank
around about the same time. So really, it's just an absolute passion for the mountains and being outside.
And then you obviously had your car crash. Would you mind sharing with the listeners what injuries you sustained and what the prognosis was at the time?
Okay, yeah. So it was a rather dramatic end to October 2019 for me. I was the passenger in a car, front seat passenger of a car that was involved in a head-on collision. Very, very briefly, I was nearly decapitated by my seatbelt. So I shattered the top 3 cervical vertebrae. So C1 to C3 were completely destroyed. The soft tissue was still intact, and that's what protected my spinal cord. But basically, my skull was flopping around on my shoulders. My brain was like a pinball inside my skull, so lots of brain damage. I managed to break all of the ribs on my left-hand side, half of the ribs on the right-hand side, shattered my breastbone, tore a 2.5 inch long hole in my aorta, which is the main artery coming from the heart. Did a lot of damage to the heart. All of the broken ribs then punctured my lungs. My diaphragm was completely destroyed. Tore holes in my gallbladder and spleen. My intestines and stomach were pushed up into my rib cage. Completely shattered my pelvis, detached it from the spine, broke my hip, broke my wrist, and lots of bruising and other soft tissue damage, basically.
And so what were you told at the time about the outcome? I mean, that sounds awful.
Apparently, I do hold a lot of records for number of injuries and things. At the time, I wasn't aware because I was put into a coma, and I didn't actually find out about the injuries until probably a month and a half, 2 months after the event. But the prognosis at the time was I would probably never regain consciousness. If I did, the extent of the brain damage was so severe that I probably would have no personality, or it would be significantly changed. I certainly would never walk again. I would probably spend the rest of my life on a ventilator in a specialist bed. So it was pretty bleak at the time. I mean, it was as bad as it can be.
And I can't think of anything worse than being in that situation. How on earth do you start to recover from those sort of injuries?
Well, I've always been a fairly positive person. Glasses half full has always been used to describe me. And I think for myself, I was incredibly lucky. When I finally did come around from the coma, I was paralyzed from the neck down, so I couldn't actually blink or communicate in any way. So I had a lot of people talking at me for a long time, and that gave me the opportunity to process things. Obviously, the initial shock was quite horrific. But when you're lying there staring at a ceiling tile for days on end, you start to process things when you've got no other choice. I've studied a lot of Eastern meditation and yoga and things like that for a long, long time. So having nothing else to do, I started doing breathing exercises and working on that, trying to pass the time.
Did they know that you could understand what they were saying to you?
Not at all, no. They were talking over me to my family as if I was a piece of meat, basically. I could hear all of the conversations. I can still recognize voices. I don't really have any faces, but I can still hear people quite clearly. And I've since met people and recognized their voice from them being in the room, which is quite interesting. But it was very much talking over and about me.
So how did you start to communicate?
If you can imagine, I was going absolutely crazy inside my brain trying to do anything. And so my main focus at the time was to try and blink my eyes, breathe independently and things like that. And after a period of weeks, I started to manage to blink. It took a couple of days for somebody to notice that I was actually controlling the blinking. When they did, they got very excited and eventually produced a board with the letters of the alphabet on it. And so somebody would sit next to me with a pad and paper and I would blink at every letter and try and spell out the word. Unfortunately, that took a lot of energy and I would get very, very tired and either pass out mid-sentence or forget what I was trying to spell halfway through. So frustrating for all, I think.
Yes. And I think you told me in our phone conversation before about holding your breath.
Yes. So I was very, very lucky to have heard many stories about people being in terrible accidents. And one that stood out to me was a gentleman called Maurice Goodman. And he had a similar prognosis, never be able to breathe again, and all of that. And he made a very good recovery. It took him a long, long time, but the first thing he decided was he was going to breathe independently. And so when he tells the story, he talks about trying to breathe while plugged into a machine. And I heard his voice in my head recounting that story. So I decided if he can do it, then I can. So I started forcing myself to breathe independently, and once I was able to do that, I started working on holding my breath and trying to count just normal yoga breathing. Breathe in for 2 or 3, hold for 2 or 3, breathe out. What I didn't realize was every time I did that, I set the alarms off in the nurse's bay, so they thought the equipment was faulty. But over days and weeks, I managed to get strong enough that when they did take me off of the ventilator, I was able to keep breathing.
And so you've mentioned Maurice Goodman, but did you have other inspirations for your motivation to get better? I mean, where did that motivation and determination come from that you were going to defy what the doctors had told you?
Well, personally, I've always been quite a stubborn person and not very good at taking a hint. But growing up in climbing circles, mountaineering, martial arts and things, you hear lots of stories about people overcoming insurmountable odds. I'd had friends who've broken their back in accidents and recovered fully from that. You know, there's lots of stories about people falling down crevasses or falling off of cliffs and coming back. You know, you've got Sterling Moss and people like that having terrible car accidents and coming back. And as far as I was concerned, if I could think of one person who came back from something horrific, then it's possible. So I just started making lists of everybody I could think of that had some horrifically bad accident, and if they could do it, then why not I?
So how did you first start walking again, and then how did you discover Nordic walking?
So basically, I had to completely relearn how to do everything because of the brain damage. It was making new neural pathways. So I started off wiggling fingers and toes and things. And as I got better with that, it became apparent I'd lost all my muscle mass. So I had to do lots of exercises just to be able to use my limbs. Eventually, with a lot of physio, I started walking with what's called a pulpit frame. So if you can imagine a Zimmer frame like an old lady uses, that but a bit higher. And eventually I was strong enough to use one of those, and the instruction was try and take 1 or 2 paces to see if you can. I sort of shot off and decided I was going to go to the end of the ward, much to the annoyance of everybody else. And it just sort of went from there, really, and lots of determination and keep pushing. I set myself the goal that I was going to walk out of hospital within 6 months of the accident, and that became my driving force. I did it with about 2 or 3 days to spare.
Amazing.
And just sort of took off, really. How I discovered proper walking was when I was released from hospital. They gave me crutches and Zimmer frames and walking sticks and all of this sort of stuff. As soon as I got out of their supervision, I threw them all away and said I'm not going to use them, which probably wasn't the smartest idea, but it meant I had to learn to walk properly. And then a few weeks into that, I was fortunate enough to meet Melissa DeMail, the physiotherapist who you've interviewed before.
Yes.
And she started helping me get strong enough to take proper steps. And I mean, we're talking literally shuffle forwards 2 or 3 steps and then pass out and start again. But over time, I got to be able to walk to the end of the garden and then around the garden. And once I got to that stage, she started talking about Nordic walking, and would that be something of interest to me? Being a slightly cynical walker from the sort of the 90s and things, I was very familiar with trekking poles and when they became fashionable. So the thought of using poles was a bit of a horrifying idea for me. I mean, I'd just thrown away a load of crutches. Why would I want to go and buy some more? But she explained the differences and the benefits, and so I reluctantly tried, and it was like a light bulb going off. It was incredible. And using the poles and learning how to do it properly, I slowly managed to walk a little bit further and a little bit further, and then next thing I knew, I'd walked a couple of miles, and it's just slowly built from there.
I mean, that's an incredible recovery. Absolutely amazing. So what other benefits have you gained from using the Nordic walking poles?
Being really, really honest and not trying to sound too preachy or anything, but I personally believe Nordic walking has allowed me to walk again. If I hadn't have used that and gone in that direction, I'd still be shuffling around from chair to chair and things like that. I go Nordic walking every day now, and I'm just building up that distance. It's given me sort of the sanity, peace of mind. I've met amazing people because of it. I've gone on walking trips and adventures with people. It's given me everything back. It's incredible.
That's just so moving.
I'm going to finish that one there because I want to share some others, and we are limited by time. So this one's a shorter one with in relation to breast, rather to the rest of that episode on walking on air slowly.
I'd like to take rehabilitation benefits. An important one is the reduction in the amount and severity of lymphedema. That's the swelling in the tissues of the arm that can occur as a result of removal or damage to the lymph nodes during your treatment. One of the key elements of the INWA technique is movement through the shoulder and active use of the hand. Using a full arm swing and opening and closing the hand to control the pulse. It is this combination that improves the lymphatic drainage of the arm and reduces your chances of developing lymphedema. I have personal experience of this. Following my own diagnosis, I had a mastectomy, lymph node clearance, chemotherapy and radiotherapy. I was lucky and I avoided lymphedema until the heat wave of 2018. When I struggled with it, I found manual lymphatic drainage alone wasn't quite enough, but as a Nordic walker, I could use my walking to eliminate it.
Probably enough from Lucy Morris. Sorry, getting tech problems here. And then, so there's a lady that leads a group of, sorry, it's not working now, people afflicted by Parkinson's.
Hi, my name's
Angela. I live with Parkinson's for the last 5.5 years. I joined this group in July of this year, and I can't express it's been life-changing for me. It's improved my walking, and we're nearly getting down to the point where I was going to be getting a mobility scooter. But I joined this group, and that is a long way off now for me.
My posture's greatly improved, my tremors improved, my confidence has improved because a great group of people who are all there for everybody, great instructors who are there to help us both individually and as a group.
Stop that. So it just gives you a sneak peek really of how this can help people. Different conditions. And
Looking on air, Derek Holloway, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, hello.
Derek, could you possibly start by just letting us know about your history of exercise?
Yes, for many years I used to be a really good track cyclist and road cyclist. I was nearly semi-professional. I used to race for a bike shop, but we used to have to hide our bike shop names under stickers because it was the early 60s and professionalism wasn't allowed to be done, to be shown. And after that, I started running, still cycling. I've raced cars. I've done sort of all sorts of things. Anything that was fun, I thought was fun, I did.
So you were an active person, weren't you?
I was a very active person, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple of businesses running at the same time.
And so you very kindly come on today to share your experiences of having a stroke. I wondered if you could just tell the listeners the story of what actually happened.
Yeah, sure. At the time, I was sort of interested in motorbikes. Got my 125 licence, and I was trying for my full licence during the Beast from the East.
Mm-hmm.
I got extremely cold doing my test. It was a week-long course with a test at the end of it. And during that session, I developed pneumonia. And with the two businesses running and the stress of my daughter, she lost her husband a couple of months earlier. We was trying to get her flat sorted out and everything. And then everything was just sort of piling up, and pneumonia hit me. I ended up in the Royal Berks Hospital for pneumonia, and they said, "Oh, we'll keep you in for observation." Very luckily, and during the night, I had a very severe stroke. I don't remember much about the stroke. I sort of just felt really calm during it. You know, it was just, this is happening to me. Right, how are we going to get out of this? It was about sort of 4 years this April away.
So were you aware at the time that you were actually having a stroke, or was it somebody in the hospital, a member of staff, who noticed what was happening?
There's a member of staff. The doctor come round and sort of described some medication for me. and I just felt so calm. It was unbelievably, I felt so very, very calm. Yeah. Normally you sort of think of something like that, because this could have been the end of my life.
Yes.
But I just felt so calm and relaxed, and okay, this is happening to me. How are we going to get out of this situation? You know, it's like before, I've been sort of whitewater rafting, and I sort of was upside down under the water. I had this paddle in my hand, which they told me to keep hold of at all costs, because I only had a limited supply, and I was sort of being bounced along the bottom, and I just threw it away. It felt exactly like that, not frightening at all.
Gosh. And can you tell us how it impacted your life straight afterwards?
Straight afterwards, my wife came in with my clothes to take me out for the next day. I said to her, I've got something to tell you. I've had a stroke. She said, no, you haven't. I said, yes, I have. Then they wheeled me down to the stroke department. The whole of my left side was like frozen. I couldn't eat. My voice was really on the edge of sort of going completely. That was it. I thought I was sort of, finished. I'm going to fight back. The same day, they had two nurses either side taking me down to physio on the same day, and they put me on the exercise bike. And luckily, being a cyclist, the memory sort of come back, and I was able to pedal.
Even with your left-hand side?
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't walk, but obviously I've cycled so much during my life. The muscles just took over, and we managed to do, I think it was 2 kilometers, according to the records. But that was a good time. I thought, yes, I can fight back from this.
So what have you done to come from that point of limited mobility and struggling with your speech and things to where you are today? Because the listeners can't see you, but I can see you on Zoom, and you sound very clear. You look great. So what have you done in that period of time, which is less than 4 years?
Well, luckily enough, I was a fighter, and the physio people recognise this. And so many other people didn't want to try. I was lucky enough to have sort of 2 to 3 periods of physio a day. I was absolutely worn out, but it was a way of me getting back. Then I came back, and I had a physio at home, which used to take me out, and she was brilliant as well. She would say, well, what's your aim? I said, well, one of my aims was to walk the dog. So off we went, walking the dog. Then a couple of weeks later, she said, what do you want to do now? She took me out my boat. A couple of weeks later, she said, what's your aim now? Well, I'd really like to be able to ride a bike again. She said, well, you'll probably fall off. You know that, don't you? I said, well, it's not the first time I've fallen off a bike, let's go for it. So we pushed the bike up to the local park. I started cycling around, and, a few wobbles, a few bits of blood, but, that's usual for a cyclist,
It's all part of the course.
All part of the course, yeah. Then a bit later on, I said, well, I'd really like to start jogging again. And she said, well, I don't think you can. I said, well, let's give it a go, So I started running again. And from there, I went back to sort of playing walking rugby, which is completely different from the pure game, but it's sort of non-contact, but we do contact, being rugby players.
Yeah. And
just the freedom of starting to move, and the more I done different things, the more I could do. I got back into running, all stupid things, and loved it, really slow, but still getting round. And I was spending less and less time with my wife because I was out training and what have you. Then I saw a car with Nordic Walking advertised on it. And so I said to Val, my wife, do you fancy having a go at that? It's something you both do together. She said yes, and that was the beginning of the end.
How fantastic. So when was that in relation to when you'd had your stroke? How many months afterwards when you first picked up a pair of Nordic walking poles?
That was approximately 2 years afterwards.
Okay. So you had regained your mobility fully or just partially by this point? I mean, if you were running, it sounds like you were pretty good.
Yes, I still couldn't feel hot and cold on my left hand, and my balance was a little bit wobbly, and I would tire very easily, but you just could push through that, don't you?
Yeah. So what benefits did you gain from Nordic walking?
It was an ongoing journey. I started off walking with the instructor, then we started walking in the groups. We started doing gentle paces. I ended up looking after the faster walkers because I was sort of an ex-runner and I was sort of fairly fit at the time. Well, fit as I could be for the situation I was in. So I was able to keep up with them. Then just before the first lockdown, she said, "Would you like to be an instructor?" No, a walks leader. And I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." Then she started doing a Parkinson's group.
Yes. Your instructor.
This was the instructor. It was her business, and she was sort of starting to run a Parkinson's group over in Bracknell. And she said, "Well, would I come along to help?" Yeah, no problem. So I went along to help and, made friends with the people. Then all of a sudden she got overwhelmed with work. So she closed it down. Me being me, and thought, I don't know, the British Nordic Walking seems a lot more community orientated. So I signed up for my instructor's exam and training with Steve. He said I walked like a railway sleeper at first, but now, I can move and flow.
The audience will be familiar with Steve. That's Steve Ellis, who has been an interviewee and an interviewer on this podcast because he interviewed me at the end of the last series. So he was your national instructor for becoming a Nordic walking instructor, was he?
Yeah, and I think he said that phrase during my training and plenty of trainings before and beyond.
And I just also wanted to ask what you find most rewarding about being a Nordic walking instructor now.
I love meeting the different people. I sort of got 2 Parkinson's groups myself.
I'm going to stop it there because obviously it gets too long otherwise, and we're coming up to the hour. I didn't want to keep you any longer. But yeah, there's so many. And I recommend you listen to the Walking on Air podcast. There's so many different stories on there, and I can only cover a few of them here. So there's one with another horrific accident of somebody who does a lot of skydiving and jumping with a parachute off a cliff. And so you'll be, it's very, very impressive, some of the recoveries. And again, there's another one interview with coping with diabetes type 2 and how that's helped, menopause. There's plenty of case studies on there. So, and the important thing is to remember that benefits do accrue when you walk regularly with Nordic walking poles. So what we find is that people come along and they have a little flavour of it, and but then they don't come back, and then you're starting again from the base one. So basically from step one, having to reteach it. So the idea is that you do this cumulatively, so you keep adding and building on, and then you start practicing it and do it more regularly. So we know we have two established walks with thriving communities. We do one in the Caerphilly area, just as you can see with the backdrop of the castle, and then I also ran one in around Pen y Fan Pond, which is the one I did last Tuesday, and with splendid weather. And as I said, I felt literally as high as a kite, because it really releases all the dose chemicals, the happy chemicals in your body, especially with the weather being so great. But to be honest, Nordic walking is an all-weather activity. You don't need to have fine weather. As long as you have your waterproof layers, you get actually really warm doing this, because of the release, with the active participation of your feet and your hands. So with normal walking, and you swing your hands a little bit, your hands get really cold, but because of the clench and the active release of the poles, you actually get really warm hands and feet. So it's great for the circulation. And like I say, it's great for the Raynaud's. That's another condition that it can help with. So if you've got circulatory problems, and one I mentioned, I forgot to cover was the menopause. So helps with this sort of spread, midriff spread, helps to tone the whole body. So yeah, I would say, you know, if you can find a local Nordic walking instructor close to you, then please do give it a go. And the important thing is, if you fancy it, if you like it, and you're in a group, as I say, it's quite a social thing, as the guy alluded to earlier, then you know it's a win-win for every which way you look at it. And I would say just take it up and continue with it. If you do love it, carry on and keep walking on air. And that's a play on words. They say that because they're on air, but you feel like you're walking on air when you do Nordic Walk. And thank you for your attention today. Love to have you, and thank you for staying the whole hour. Appreciate that. Goodbye. Oh, I was going to say goodbye, but I think I was going to take some questions. Does anybody have any questions before I close the session? Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Anybody got any questions? Like, I'm happy to answer.
That's fine. It was very nice, really, Esther. And at least it made me realize about my posture, because I do a lot of walking with golf, playing golf. But I think the posture, which I think that we can take it anywhere part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a deliberate act of, you know, keeping more upright, and because you can't only lean when your body is more upright, otherwise you fall over. So yeah. And then
sure. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting.
Hopefully the quality of the sound, because obviously I know there was a bit of bandwidth problem, but
it was very good.
Yeah, fabulous. And I thought it was important to share some of those stories. They're really powerful testimonials of, I mean, the first guy really, and I've just met him at the British Nordic Walking Convention, annual convention, some couple of weeks ago. Really, really inspiring. He's done base Camp Everest since. You wouldn't think it before COVID, having come through that horrendous, you know, when they didn't think he was going to actually recover. So yeah,
it's very. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Surinder. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Mammy.
Thank you for organizing.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.